market. And it's so important, you know, an innovation is not only a new product or a new technology or a new way of thinking, but it's also a new way of entering market. And the last part is maybe the most important thing. Next slide. Yeah, that's all spin-off companies, you know. The old one and the new ones, and they are still, lots of them are still growing. Yeah, next one. There's a number of companies. We are now already around 105 now. Because my goal was setting up 10 companies a year. If you look there, you know, the moment that the whole thing goes up, it's in 1990. That's the moment that I became vice director, you know, responsible for the spin-offs. The 7 is now already 10 because it's figures from 2014. Next slide. Well, that's what I already told you now. There is a research through shares and warrants. There's a patent portfolio time, and so on and so on. Important thing was the Gamma Fritzes Fund. I already told you the Gamma Fritzes Fund was set up in 1997 by Rector Ostерлink. And it's still, you know, it's 20% capital and 40% between the two major banks. And we invest roughly 1 or 2 million per spin-offs. But for the pharmaceutical spin-offs, you need, of course, much more money. And that's the reason that we help them to raise money in the second round and the third round. Next. This is the ecosystem of Leuven, you know. Leuven, it's, there are living something like 100,000 people in Leuven, small town. More than 20,000 are working, you know, for the university and university hospital. Because we are dominating the town. Because we have also in the 100,000 people living here, there are 50,000 students, not in the center. Next. Oh, Elat, you know, my friend told you about Elat. It was the Eindhoven-Leuven-Aachen triangle. But I was also involved the last 7 years to set up a very big European project, a 2.5 billion European project. And that was not only Eindhoven, Leuven and Aachen, but also Imperial College, Oxford. It's very hard to have Cambridge and Oxford in the same project. That's a little bit difficult. And then our sister our competing university in Ghent, and then some universities in the Netherlands, France, Germany, and all. Next one. I think we can start now to have more questions now, and I will. I think we can stop here and then have maybe time for questions. Okay?
Yes, thank you very much. I want to ask you one question that I wrote you before. You told me that in 1972 you split out 2 positions.
Yeah.
Rectors and the new position that you called general manager inside the university. Could you a little bit talk about the logic of splitting of these 2 positions and the roles of each other, the functions of each other?
Well, the reason is we consider the rector here as the most important professors under the professors, because we are what we call system, the rector is still elected here. Not, so, most of universities have not an elected rector, but they have an appointed rector, but we have an elected rector. And that elected rector can have managerial capacities, but that's also possible they have no managerial capacities. And that's the reason that we split the university management in, let's say, the man who is thinking about fundamental research and the ways to do that, and having a good teaching thing. But to support the whole thing, that's another totally other thing. And the general manager is responsible for all the buildings, the support, all the supporting people. He is also the head of the human resource for the technicians, secretaries, and so on and so on. The professors now are involved in organizing their research and their education, and the rector is the head of that. But the general manager is the head of all the supporting staff and supporting infrastructure, computer center, ICT, how to buy things, and so on and so on. That's an important thing that's but and now it's interesting that all the other universities have taken over that model in Belgium. It's also interesting to know there are only two countries in the world where a free university, because the Catholic University is a free university. She's still Catholic in name, because we were restarted, during the French Revolution, the university was closed. And after the French Revolution and the 15 years of the Netherlands, Belgium became independent in 1830, and the university was restarted by the bishops. But now, the bishops have no saying at all in the university. They are even not member of the trustees. We call it our still Catholic University. There's another very important reason. The Catholic organizations are running the high schools, and more than 70% of all the high schools are run by the Catholic organizations. But next to the free Catholic universities, or the free nations universities, because the VVB is a free, we have these state universities, but both type of universities receive the same amount of subsidy. There's no difference between the subsidy that we receive and the subsidy that the state university receive. And of course, because we are free in our organization, the state universities now were also demanding the same freedom. And University of Ghent, the state university, the Ministry of Education have no say at all in their budget, in their appointment process, in the election system for directors. We are now all free universities. And that's the nice part of it. Secondly, you have also to realize, and I was the one who was able to convince the Minister of Education 10 years ago, to change the subsidy system of the universities. If you look into the system of the universities, they have three main money streams. The first money stream is for the education. 55% of the education money is based on number of diplomas and number of students. But 45% is based on research output multiplied by the quality. Then the next stream is for fundamental research that's totally based on research output, quality, and amount. And there's a third stream that we receive. I was also the one who was able to convince the rest to do that. We receive now some money from the government, from the Department of Economic Affairs, for our valorization job. This conclusion, the universities is pushed now in a way that they take care about their education and the quality of their education, the quality of research, but also the quality of pay. And because the subsidy is based on output and quality of the output, there is a real competition between universities, because it's an envelope, total envelope of the government, and the three envelopes are divided over the university now. To give you an example, Leuven, we have something like 37% of the students. We receive now 45% of the research budget and more than 55% of the budget for valorization. And that's the reason that Ghent, the same university as we, is trying to compete with us. And because they're competing with us, we have to do better. And it's going up and up. This is very important, for me, for the success of universities, that the government support the three missions in a very competitive way, but give a very high degree of autonomy to the universities. And that's also the reason that universities, they have to manage all that stuff. And that's the reason that they all have a general manager.
And if I'm not mistaken, the freedom of university are now in Constitution of Belgium.
Yeah. It's even a part of our Constitution. In the Constitution of Belgium, freedom of education is a part of that. And the students are free to choose. You have not only to compete for money from the government, you have also to compete for the students. And competition is always healthy. I'm a strong believer of competition.
Okay, I will ask the auditory about the questions now.
Yeah.
So they will ask in Russians and I will translate you to English.
Yeah, of course.
Скажите, пожалуйста, какие основные трудности, с которыми вы столкнулись в 90-м году, и какой следующий шаг развития вашего университета? Спасибо.
So there is two questions. The first question was, what was the main difficulties for you when you appointed as a rector at that time, so middle of 19th? That is the first question. And the second question was about what do you think of the next big step of university developing as a action step?
First of all, I was not appointed by elected. That's a correction. Although I am in favor of a system where you appoint director, but that's okay. And my first thing was, I was a real researcher, I was also a real manager of research. And the people were afraid that I was having too much interest in fundamental and applied research. And I had to prove, that I was also able to listen to the people, but also to take care about education. And that's also the reason that I've installed a system where the students are evaluating their professors once a year for every course, a little bit the American system. I'm mostly coming from England, UK, or from the United States. But this was a main difficulty, to convince the people that I was not only a researcher and was doing very good valorization, they recognized that, but the third job, for most professors, the first job, education, was also very important, and I had to prove, that I was able to be the leader also about enhancing the quality of education. Second question?
Second question was yes about the next step, the next big step of university. So if you could look to the history of the last 40 years, we would see, I think, big two steps. So something before, middle of 19th, and something after it, until now. So what is the next? What is the third step?
Well, we have to look very carefully to distant universities, where there are no professors on the campus anymore. Will we be able to compete with the new type of distant universities, distant learning universities? I believe so, because we still are a community, and communities are very important. But it will be a very hard competition. And secondly, how to deal with the new technology, because as I told you, I was an imaging guy. I was the first one who was able, if you take your phone, you can take pictures now. I was the first one in a big part of Europe who was able to put an image in a computer. It was in 72, I've done it in 72. Well, I have seen that evolution of the technology that's going very strong. Electronics and ICT is now changing the medical thing and also medicine, because IMEC is now working on a lab on chip. Big data analysis. It's the new technology is going so fast, and most of our professors are not clear, not ready enough to use all that new stuff. That will be a big thing to do, I'm convinced university will be still there in the next 30, 40 years, because communities are important. But we will teach totally different. And research, because big data is so important. To give you an example, neural nets. Neural nets is a way, to do artificial intelligence. It's already there for more than 30 years, because we can use now very big data sets. It's now working in a lot of applications, but we cannot explain it. The technology is going so fast that we as university have to find a way to incorporate the evolution of technology.
Thank you. Once more questions, please.
World became global now, becoming smaller and smaller. And what do you think? Is geographical placement of an average university which would like to repeat success of Leuven, is it still so important?
Did you hear the question? So is it?
You can summarize.
Do you think that the geographical place of the university is still important for the development of university in a new technology reality, as I understood the question?
Well, I'm not sure sure you know, there was a time that university towns were very attractive. You know, university towns like Leuven, Cambridge, Oxford, and so on. If I'm looking now to UK, now in a few years I'm pretty sure that University College of London, UCL, will be the best. Because students and people like to be part of a big city. And that will be a competing thing, you know. Because also in Belgium, Brussels, Antwerp will be a strong competitive partner, hopefully partner, for the University of Leuven. No idea. There was a time that people were not interested to stay in the big towns. Now a big town is it's a kind of community where different things are happening, you know, not only industrial, university-wise, but also culturally. And it's look to the formation of UCL. And UCL is also a member of the Leuven, and is becoming one of the best universities in, and Paris is doing the same thing, you know, the 12 universities, they are regrouping them, and they become very competitive. This to be, to locate it in a big town like Moscow or St. Petersburg will be an important positive thing.
Okay, so could we ask a few more questions?
Yeah.
Perfect. Daniel.
Денис, ну вот я просил бы тебя задать вчерашний вопрос про инвентора еще раз, поскольку здесь он был заявлен прямо в слайде однажды, и причем, в общем, в довольно существенной части, касающейся разделения доходов.
Okay, я понял, я спрашиваю. So the question is, I will give you a little bit short introduction of this question. Yesterday, it was the same question to Martin Hinul. The question is, do you name the position of inventor as a separate position in your ecosystem? The answer of Martin yesterday was that we don't name it as inventor, we named it as a teams or few different positions. So the same question to you, because on your one of the slides it was mean the inventor.
Yeah.
What do you mean by this?
Well, if you look to the German university as an example, the inventor was always the top professor. Not in Belgium, not in Leuven. The inventor is the real inventor. Can a student, can be a student, can be a professor, can be a doctor student, but can also be a technician. And that's the important thing, you know, that we recognize, and that's also the reason that the people who are put their name on a patent, you know, it's very carefully, that was done very carefully. You have to find the real inventor, and mostly the invention is a combination of different people, and then you have to divide it. But we are recognizing even a technician if he is doing a part of the invention.
Thank you. So as I understand your answer, the inventor is you use this name in a context of the licensing. So who is the owner, or who is the group of the owners of this license, of this ownership?
Well, the ownership by the university, as I told you already, by law. But of course, you know, also the law told us that we have to pay some profits back. That's the reason that we have to list them, all the inventors.
Okay, clear.
That is very clear, you know. It is an invention by a doctor, most of the time by doctor students. Of course, the professor, who is the promoter, is also involved. And that's the reason that we then split 50-50 or something. There are certain rules in there. But an important thing is, in a lot of countries, that's only the professor. That's not good. Then your team is not working well.
Okay. Еще есть вопросы, друзья? So that was the last one. So Mr. Ostерлink, let me tell you thanks very much, and I will now turn the computer in order you to see the outdoor.
Well, this teaching was an example, of using ICT. 20 years ago, I had to fly over to Moscow, buy a new coat, because it's very cold over there. Now, when I'm sitting here in my office, I'm talking with you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ostерлink. Thank you, bye. Завтра в 10 ваша установка здесь, правильно?
Смотрите, значит, есть несколько версий. Итак, версия первая. Поскольку я ничего не знаю, что у вас происходит в группах,
Вы догадываетесь?
и не успел узнать еще. Я был занят. Поэтому я, конечно, попробую сейчас провести интервью, там, парочку. Но есть несколько вариантов. Итак, вариант первый. Не делать установку, а провести консультацию. Если у вас есть вопросы. Если в группах возникли какие-то вопросы ко мне. Второе. Провести, не то чтобы установку, а разъяснение. Более мягкая такая форма. Но если я пойму, что в группах есть некоторые ситуации, да, и мы вообще можем это отложить. То есть мы можем это не делать утром, а дать группам еще поработать. То есть это тоже вариант. Поэтому подумайте. Поскольку у вас теперь главная коммуникационная среда Facebook, напишите мне в Facebook. Поэтому мы завесили 10, то есть я буду здесь в это время. А формат мы тогда должны с вами за ночь обсудить и принять решение. Успехов!
Коллеги, не забудьте наушники сдать, пожалуйста.
Они не пригодятся.
Давай я сейчас сложусь.
Сереж, ты звал?
Если у вас